Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast for Friday, September the 5th. I'm Zach Ewing, and we made it. We're finally at our first game prediction show. It's the regular season. It's week one. Saints playing the Panthers at the Dome at noon on Sunday. God, it's been a long time.
Yeah, I feel like that screen grab from Shawshank Redemption, you know, where what's-his-face is on his knees.
Andy Dufresne. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like right now.
The last time that the Saints played a regular season game, we were all talking about Jameis Winston and Jamal Williams. That seems like a really long time ago.
Who knows? We might be talking about Jameis Winston and Jamal Williams after week one. Who knows?
Lots has changed. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus. Their banking decisions are actually made here in New Orleans by local bankers who know the community and take the time to know you. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to dive into our Saints-Panthers prediction. Also, I have a question about Juwan Johnson's contract I want to answer too. Like the Brian Windhorst. Now, why is that?
Yeah, we'll see if we can come up with an answer
why
here.
Is
I've
that?
been wrong
You guys
before.
have 60 seconds to think about it. So
Okay.
We'll take a break and be right back.
Nice bike.
Thanks. Can I get it back before Saturday?
That might be tough.
Whoa. Is it just you?
For now, let's take a look.
Hi, strawberry mango. Mm-hmm. Here you go. Thank you. I'll take another one.
Fellas, it's clear why Caesar's brought us together. This is the ultimate quarterback roundtable.
I think I know why we're here.
What? Quarterback, high school, Oklahoma?
I thought that was a musical. Garth, I think you're here because when people use Caesar's Sportsbook, they earn with Caesar's rewards. Things like celebrity chef dining, Vegas vacations, even tickets to your show.
This app is over the top. There's the idea.
Bet with Caesar's Sportsbook. Earn Caesar's rewards and see your favorite quarterback, Garth Brooks, in concert.
Hey, you can't throw like that.
All right, so digging into Saints versus Panthers again is at noon on Sunday. It's at the Dome. It's on Fox, but if you want to go to the game, what can you get in for, like $11 or something?
No, I saw it for $32 the other day. Let's take a quick look.
Demand is high.
So we're gonna look it up on SeatGeek here.
Well, while you do that, I'll tell you that the betting line is Saints by 4. The over-under is 41.5, which seems a little high. The Saints and Panthers have not played a game over 41.5 points, Matt, in like 4 years.
Right. No, I mean, maybe it's the Dave Canales effect. They're thinking that the Panthers offense is going to come out guns blazing with the new coach and a rejuvenated quarterback. Good luck.
Klint Kubiak effect.
Yes, that too. Saints have a new offense. Yeah. Maybe they just expect all these changes right away to just be blazing.
Get in price $24.
Okay, not bad.
24 American dollars, and look, you could buy a ticket and a beer for the same price.
I was going to say you can get into the game for much cheaper than you can buy lunch.
That's true.
Go have lunch at home, and
especially
then get into
if you're doing
game.
a liquid lunch.
That's right.
Like some of us like to do.
It's new renovated Superdome too for fans. A lot of nice new accoutrements in there. New ribbon boards. I thought it looked good the other day.
Didn't you spend like a month in France? You can't even pronounce the word the French way.
We talked about me going to France. Have we done a pod on that yet?
Yeah.
Should we do one?
How much French can you speak?
Not any.
No. You can say vin.
Whenever I speak French, I sound like Pepe Le Pew.
That's okay.
Vin rouge.
My little, I love you.
All right.
Okay. All right. Off the rails already. Yeah. Again, betting line Saints by 4. It's kind of bounced around a little bit. But we'll get into our breakdown and what we think and end with predictions. First, I did want to ask you guys, our transactions segment. Juwan Johnson restructured his contract, saved the Saints $3.5 million in cap space. Why do they keep doing this and they're not spending the money? This is very unlike New Orleans.
Well, you can roll over the cap from year to year, like whatever you have left. So it could just be that.
You can, but like, what is the point of rolling money into future years if you're borrowing from future years to do that? I don't. We have gotten like very good at understanding the salary cap from a reporter standpoint. I think the Saints beat probably gets the salary cap better than 31 other NFL team beats just because of the way the Saints have managed it. But the simple fact of the matter is, we still have no idea what we're talking about compared to the guys who are actually managing it. Kai Harley would run literal circles around us when it comes to configuring the cap and the reasoning behind why they do stuff. So, like especially when they did Taysom Hill's deal, I was like, well, something's imminent. Why would you clear this much cap space if not for wanting to sign somebody? And then they never did anything with it. So, like, it feels like this has a purpose behind it for immediate reasons, but maybe it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to kind of parse through.
We're 2 days away from the regular season, Jeff, so I don't think it's anything before Sunday. Maybe
the only thing
gives
I
them
thought
flexibility
of,
at the trade deadline.
I mean, you all would know better than me, but I thought, well, maybe like Paulson and Debo extension's imminent or something like that. Maybe they're going to
but like
a big deal like him.
That
But
stuff shouldn't affect the 2024 cap number though.
Yeah,
so.
and it should be fairly low.
Unless
the way they structure them, it's low anyway. So
yeah, unless you're pressed against it, like the Denver Broncos, they just did Surtain's contract and then they like did Cortland Sutton's deal, but they had to create that room to like get Surtain's lower cap number like under. There was like a purpose for that. I mean, the Saints have enough cap room. It's like $13 million right now, to where they would be okay. I think if they wanted to redo a Debo or anything like that.
It's just out of character for them to do this without an immediate ad. So
didn't they just do Juwan? Like, how many years old is his contract? Too?
Maybe
this is a final year of a 2-year contract.
Yeah, so I mean, it is weird. I mean, it wasn't like it was a long-term deal, like 5 years. 5 years ago they did it. It was just 2 years ago. So
I will say that often when they do this stuff with a guy who's like on an expiring contract, not all the time. Obviously, there are examples where they haven't done this, but usually it's they're intending to keep the player because otherwise they're going to accelerate a dead cap hit onto next year's cap. So the intent is probably to work on a extension for Juwan Johnson that they can then add void years to and continue to push that number down the road.
Yeah, and more Juwan in our lives would be a good thing. Also, we haven't mentioned yet the Alvin Kamara possible extension. Maybe this is a precursor to that happening. I don't know, but
he did list his house for sale.
He did.
There were stories on that this week.
But he supposedly has more than one property in New Orleans as well. So.
Yes, he's.
Yeah. It's all very interesting, and it's kind of a backdrop to the season opener. So
let's just talk about football. I want to. Yeah, I'm excited.
Let's
to
break
talk
it down,
about
man. Noon on Sunday, we're going to get a Who Dat chant. We're going to get a coin flip, and we're going to get a kickoff.
Are there betting odds on who leads the Who Dat chant?
I do not believe so. What would
there should be.
Do you want to make them?
You know what? I'm going to put my betting favorite, on Derek Carr.
I was thinking that. Carr, or could it be Alvin?
I think there's a concerted effort to rehabilitate his image among the fan base.
I got to trot Spencer Rattler out there and see what happens.
My God.
New captain Taysom Hill? Do they
that would be the guy. He's pretty universally beloved.
He seems like, I wouldn't make him like an odds-on favorite, but he seems like the betting favorite.
I would have said AK, but I think he did it last year, didn't he? Didn't he start the year with?
Wasn't it with Mark Ingram
and Deuce? All
yeah,
three
Deuce. Did they introduce the offensive starters or the defensive starters?
I would assume the offense, get some good vibes going for
before they come crashing down.
What if they do the whole introduce, like, and here are your New Orleans Saints, and they don't introduce starters?
Yeah, the whole team
with offensive coordinator Klint Kubiak.
Yeah, he's last,
Mr. Fiery.
Okay, so speaking of Kubiak, when the Saints have the ball, let's start there. Obviously, we're all looking to see what this new offense looks like without the governor of the preseason, what they're going to do, how it's going to look. We're going to see a lot of running, Matt, I think. Like that seems like the safest bet is that they'll run the ball more than they did last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think that San Francisco drive, even though the preseason is vanilla, I think it was a good tempo, a good preview of what this identity is going to be. I mean, that drive, talking about the preseason game, it still featured a lot of chunk passing plays. Like there was like a 16-yard gain that they were able to move the ball when needed to. For that, it's just you're still going to get a lot of, 3-yard runs, 4-yard runs. I think you're going to see a lot of motion on those runs. But I do think they're going to try and attack this a little bit differently because the Panthers defense too has kind of historically given Derek Carr some problems in the past.
I think you're going to see also in this offense a lot of different people run the ball. You know what I mean? Like Taysom, obviously, we've talked about a bunch. I think they're going to be a few more jet sweeps with Rashid. They didn't do enough of that, I think, in the past. I think we're going to see a little more creativity in the running game than we've seen, and I think that's a good thing.
I was going to ask if the Saints run the ball, 30 times, what's the split of how many AK has, how many Jamal Williams has, how many Taysom has, and then everybody else?
I mean, I'd probably go 60% AK, 20% Taysom, 20% everybody else.
Including Williams?
Including Williams and Jordan
Sounds
Mims.
about right. I mean, I don't think Carr's going to be doing any read option.
No,
probably not.
He's not pulling the Lamar Jackson out.
They're not that creative.
I will say that I think the running game is going to be a strength of this team this year. I know for a fact that they want to build everything they're doing offensively off of that running game, and that's their play action game, their screen game, their boot game. Everything is built off that foundation, and I think they have a good matchup this week to get off to a good start. Carolina last year was, I just looked it up, I think 23rd in the NFL in run defense. They did add Jadeveon Clowney, who is a really good run defending edge player. But I think they've subtracted a lot of good run support players. Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin's no longer there, correct?
Both in Washington.
Here we go.
I set you up. That's not fair.
You did.
Okay, but like I think that this, like when you looked at this Panthers team last year, one of the things that was like completely evident when you were watching them is they had no juice offensively, right? They had no playmakers offensively. I think that's true about their team defensively this year. I think they lost a lot of their best players, Brian Burns, Louvu, and they. Some of the guys they replaced them with are good, but I think they just don't have a lot of team speed on that side of the ball, and I think the Saints can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I kind of think that there's an argument to be made that the Panthers might be better on defense even after losing those guys. Like Jadeveon Clowney, he had more sacks last year than Brian Burns. I think the Frankie Louvu loss is like legitimate, but they brought in Josie Jewell, who knows Arrivo's scheme from playing under him in Denver. Like, I do think this group could be okay, and they just do a lot of things that just like they play fundamentally sound, even though they weren't like the best, like statistically last year. They're near the bottom of the league. They're bad, but
I had trouble moving the ball against them.
Yeah, I do think they're like a good. It's a good scheme. He's a Vic Fangio disciple.
I feel like every time the Saints have played him too, like J.C. Horn's been hurt. And he's been there, he was the guy they drafted to be their shutdown guy, and he's been hurt, I think, both years, that the Saints have tried to play when the Saints have played them. So if I'm them, I would try and match him up on Olave, obviously. I don't know if they will have him follow Olave or not, but that's something they haven't had when they've played the Saints in the past. And we remember last year in Charlotte, Olave had a spectacular game. Some of those catches were off the hook.
As the kids say,
off the hook. Off the chain.
Off the chain. They were lit.
The last story in our season preview series on NOLA.com was it published this morning, so check it out, NOLA.com/Saints, and Luke wrote it. Luke, you got to talk one-on-one with Klint Kubiak, and we want you to go read the story and subscribe and all that good stuff, but just kind of a sneak peek. One thing that kept coming up in your conversation with him is how aggressive of a play caller he wants to be.
Yeah, and this is something that comes directly from his dad. His dad is, whenever they have a conversation and it veers towards football, which like obviously a lot of their conversations do. His dad was a coach in the NFL for almost 40 years. Clint's been in the NFL for more than a decade. His dad's talking to him about offense. He's talking to him about being aggressive. And yeah, I think that came through in my conversation with Klint. It came through when we were talking about San Francisco and what he watched Kyle Shanahan do. It comes through, we were having a conversation with Derek Carr in the locker room this week, and he was talking about it as well. So, I think the line that I really liked was he's like, look, you are in a tight game, and there's going to be a spot where you can go for the easy completion or you can go for the score. It's like we work all week. We come up with these great game plans. Like why wouldn't you go for the jugular? So I think that's going to be exciting to watch if he can actually apply it in a game, because they've got the guys to do it. Like they've got the guys to really step on the gas and go for it. And we've seen this offense in other places, Miami most notably, where they're like, we got guys, we're going to go for the throat all the time. And I think if the Saints can even come close to approximating that, it's going to be really fun.
So first play, flea flicker, you heard it here.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but not aggressive like that, but like I think Derek Carr specifically last year, I think that one of the things that irritated a lot of people about watching him play was that it was all very safe. Because that's what the Saints did for a long time. Drew Brees took what was there, but he was also a guy who was adept at pushing the ball downfield when the chances were there. And I think the difference between this offense and what Brees was running is those decisions were often on Drew Brees. Say like, hey, if you see somebody like going into the little honey hole in the coverage and you got a chance for it, you got it, take it. Whereas in this offense, I think it's going to be more design, and Klint is going to be like, I'm calling this play. If you see this coverage, that's going to be there. Go for it. Go big.
All right, so wrap up our discussion on the offense. Saints' first touchdown. Or null, they don't score a touchdown.
No, I'll go Chris Olave.
All right, I got Taysom.
Yeah, come on, man. Taysom Hill all the way.
Yep, same.
All right.
Taysom.
So no AKs.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, fine. I'll get off the train. Like we can't. No. I'm gonna go.
Rashid's gonna get some looks in this game.
No, I'm gonna go call back to 2023 and say first offensive touchdown is the guy who scored the last offensive touchdown last year.
Jamal
They
Williams.
just get that out of the way. They don't have to deal with that in week 18 again this year.
Yeah, I can see
probably
that.
get a good number on that
On DraftKings.
whatever.
Yeah, check it out.
If anybody wants to
Caesars.
sponsor us from the betting community.
Stop.
All right, flipping things over to when the Panthers have the ball, and I think we'll see some pretty significant changes here as well. Like, obviously, the number one question when you look at the Carolina Panthers is, can they fix Bryce Young? And Jeff, they bring in Dave Canales, who kind of has this history. He quote unquote fixed Geno Smith in Seattle, Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. They both had career years under Dave Canales as the offensive coordinator. Now he comes to Carolina, and Bryce Young, who was just horrible as the number one pick last year, is next on the fix-it list.
Yeah, and you can tell they spent the offseason basically trying to, give him better weapons and improve the pass protection, especially in the interior. Sounds like they're doing a lot of what following the old Saints Drew Brees game plan, where they fortify the interior. I think they spent. Can I say shitload? Can I say that? I just did.
I actually think that YouTube may flag us for that.
Okay,
we'll see. Well, I guess we'll find out.
They spent a boatload of money on.
Say in French, you're good.
On interior, on two guards, right? They brought in two.
Yeah, Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis.
Yeah,
sounds right.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, so they're trying to fortify the interior, and then they drafted Leggett from South Carolina, right?
Yeah, Xavier.
And then who's the free agent?
Deontay Johnson. They traded for. Yeah.
So clearly they're trying to give him. I mean, they can't be worse on offense than they were a year ago. I mean, that's the thing. Like in that game last year in the Dome, they were awful. I never felt like they could even almost get past midfield. So they've got to find out what they've got in him. I think this is a big year for him just to see if he can do it at the NFL level. I think it's that big a crisis. He played so poorly a year ago, and they've brought in a head coach specifically because of Bryce Young to try and improve his production and confidence level. He didn't seem very confident either a year ago, which is probably natural playing in that attack.
How could you be?
No, I don't know. I don't know if they could be any worse, but I think this is a tough matchup for them right off the bat with the Saints, who have a veteran defense. I mean, these guys didn't even need training camp, that defense. I mean, they're such a veteran group. They've all been in the system for the most part for a while. I think it's going to be a long day for Bryce Young.
Well, most of them didn't get training camp.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's true. A lot of them sat out, yeah. You mentioned Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. I think that's a tiger in a raging cage.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Couple of.
Although I think Robert Hunt is from Texas, if I remember correctly. He was in the last recruiting class when I was covering the UL Raging Cajuns.
Matt, you brought up this point, and I had looked this up too. The Saints had 34 sacks all year last year. 8 of them came in the 2 games against the Carolina Panthers. So if you take out the Panthers, they were really bad at rushing the passer.
Yes.
And that's going to be the game plan. Is like let's put Bryce Young under pressure again. They added Chase Young, and that seems like the most likely path to success for the Saints defense.
It is, and the Saints defensive line has looked really good all summer, and I think it'll translate again. I mean, I know the Panthers added that interior depth there, but you still got to block on the edge. I think the Saints' interior pressure could be a lot better this year, just with Brzee taking another step. I think Cam Jordan sliding to the inside on pass rushing downs could be effective for them. And then Chase Young and Carl Granderson, those guys will be on the field a lot. I don't think we've necessarily talked about how like maybe Cam Jordan's snaps could be severely limited compared to a year ago. I think now that the season is starting, they're going to have to make some tough choices, but they can rotate all those guys in there. And, there's not, to your point, Jeff, Bryce Young was so bad last year. I looked this up the other day. He had the lowest completion percentage in that game against the Saints of any starter that wasn't benched or injured midway through the game last year.
That's amazing.
So
he was terrible.
Well, and let's not forget that the Panthers don't have their second round running back for the first four weeks of the season. Miles Sanders was atrocious last year. Chuba Hubbard is he even still there?
Yeah, he's there. He's fine.
Okay, he's fine. But then they bring in this offensive scheme from Dave Canales, and Tampa was one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL last year.
And so he's going to get hurt.
They got two tight ends hurt. Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble are both on the injury report, both DMPs, both Wednesday and Thursday.
You don't believe in Jordan Matthews?
So, I think they've got more weapons on the offense for sure. I think Bryce Young is going to take a step forward, but they're not giving. I can't see much of a path where they give him much help with the run game. And if they're going to be in a lot of third and long situations, I really do think that this Saints pass rush will get an opportunity to show why people should maybe take it a little bit more seriously this year.
And I was talking to Ty Matthew this week, and he said the whole game plan, I'm revealing it here, is just keep him in the pocket. Like, keep him between the tackles. Like, I don't think they're even going to have to blitz much. I think they're going to just try and win up front with 4, stay disciplined, and keep him in the pocket and make the 5'11" quarterback throw over the over those trees. I just think that's the plan. And I think last year they did a good job of that. A few times he did slip out, but for the most part, they kind of kept him under control.
Yeah, that first meeting against them, he was a little bit more slippery. He played well in the first game. I mean, it was, but I just don't think, I think catching them so early in the season too, like the rematch might be more interesting just because they'll have time to develop Bryce Young. They'll have time to implement Canales' system. With it being week 1, I think there's still going to be some things that they're going to have to work through. And I think the Saints too, for their offense, going back to that, they're going to have to work through some kinks. But there's just too much talent here. The Saints, I mean, if you want to just boil it down, the Saints are so much more talented on defense than the Panthers are on offense.
And I think you made a good point, by the way, about Bryce Young being 5'11", Chase Young 6'5", Brian Brzee 6'5", Cam Jordan is the run of the litter at 6'4", Carl Granderson 6'5", Peyton Turner is 8 feet tall with his arms. So I just think that they can probably get their hands on a couple balls at the line of scrimmage too.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I mean, and that's what the Saints do so well. I think that's their strength, is that they're physical up front. They're not the most speedy guys, but that's not what they want. That's not how they're built. And so I think for them, just keep him in the pocket and make him beat you. And I don't see how, even with the new additions downfield, they're going to beat the Saints secondary.
Yeah.
At least not consistently.
Yep. And the Saints are healthy too. I mean, Willie Gay, Pete Werner, and Marshawn Lattimore have all been on the injury report, but we think they're all good to go for Sunday. None of them are nursing anything serious. So may not be the case at any other point during the year, but they're healthy right now. They got all except for Colin Saunders. If you count him as a starter, he will not play. But other than that, they're healthy. Flipping over to special teams quickly, guys. I think the biggest thing is the kickoff, and we saw it last night in the Ravens-Chiefs game. More touchbacks than we did in the preseason. Like at some point, teams are just going to say, "Well, I'll give them the extra 5 yards of field position."
I mean, look, it's the smart thing to do. It's what I would do as a head coach. Like, I don't care about 5 yards. Offenses are too good to care about 5 yards. What I do care about is if you rip off a 70-yard return and then you're starting at your own 30. And And the more and more cracks you're going to give these guys at it, the more and more big returns there are going to be. I think there are going to be more big returns than guys getting tackled like the 15. So it's smart, but I hate it because I was really looking forward to seeing the new kickoff rule actually result in some returns. But like I just don't think it makes sense if you're an NFL coach to just like take your chances with it.
You know, it's funny. I was actually listening to believe it or not, I was listening to a gambling podcast.
Wow. Shocker.
And I had one of the sharp bettors said that in his model, the new kickoff is going to add 1.5 to over-under totals in games. And he actually said he did expect more touchbacks, but he said that 5-yard difference in field position actually makes about a 3/4 point per game difference per team.
Yeah.
So it does make a difference. I don't know how big of a difference it's going to be. Like, you know, it's not going to be super obvious, man.
Well, it's also not necessarily. It is a 5-yard difference from last year to this year, but I guess in the preseason, the teams that did return kicks, they were returning them to an average about 28 yards. So if you're a team, you know, if you're going to give up a 28-yard gain on average, well, then why not just boot it out of the end zone, eliminate the risk of a touchdown, and then start at the 30? Like, I think that's kind of what you're seeing with teams, and it's why, I mean, we'll see how this shakes out over the course of the year, but their plan to fix the kickoff might not have been effective as maybe they wanted to be.
Yeah, I think
Moneyball Matt Paras.
They need to make it to 35. If you make it to 35, that changes that equation. One more question on the kickoff, Jeff. Darren Rizzi was on the committee that helped come up with this rule change.
Was he? I didn't know.
Do the Saints have an advantage, at least early on in this process, with Rizzi saying, I'm going to try this and this and this, and new things that maybe we haven't even thought of yet?
Well, you'd think so, but I'm sure he studied it. I mean, this is his baby in a lot of ways, and I'm interested to see if they do that. I think every team's going to be a little different with how they strategically attack this, especially if you've got a really good kicker who can place it. Then there is some advantage if you've got the confidence to do it. It's funny. I talked to Randy Mueller about it because Randy Mueller was in the XFL where they started this, and he said everybody in the league had different. It just all came down to your special teams coordinator and what your strategy was. So wouldn't surprise me to see the Saints veer off into it, be an aggressive kickoff team.
Yeah, and I think that's the area where you can maybe exploit it the most if you're Darren Rizzi. It's not on the return because that's completely dependent on the other team. It's on the actual kickoff. If you can find a way to exploit the weaknesses or whatever, the rule change to work in your favor on kickoff, and then you're gaining 15 yards or 10 yards field position compared to your opponents because you have a really strong coverage unit, which like they always do. Like who's it, Rick? Is it Rick Goslin does the special teams rankings at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Every year, even last year when the Saints had poor kicking and punting, they finished like number 3 in the NFL, or maybe even number 1 in the NFL in those annual special teams rankings. Darren Rizzi always has his guys on absolute top of their game in coverage, and I think that's the area where they can really exploit this.
And especially with this defense. This Saints defense is very sound, so like if you can have opponents consistently starting their field position at the 20 or the 22 or something, that's a huge deal against this defense. It's not like the Saints are, and just they have an above average defensive scheme. So I think that's got to be part of their strategy. Way Dennis Allen thinks,
Okay, so that's our breakdown of Saints Panthers. We're going to have keys to the game and our predictions coming up to wrap up the show. Right after this break, we'll be back in 30. All right, our keys to the game for Saints Panthers is brought to you by Associated Grocers. Join our team and help support the success of local independent retail grocers. Apply today for available positions at Associated Grocers. Okay, keys to the game. Saints going for their 6th season opening victory in a row. which is kind of crazy when you think about how mediocre they've been in all the other games. They keep winning the opener. They are also, I think, Jeff, probably going for a very crucial victory when you look at the scope of this season and who they have coming up on the schedule next. I got to win this game.
Yeah, I think the circumstances dictate it's not a must-win, but it's kind of a must-win, right? Just for the fans and for the confidence in the locker room and the fact they're playing maybe the worst team in the league or one of the worst teams
You
in
got
the
Dallas, Philly, Atlanta, Kansas City.
And you're at home. I mean, if the Saints were to lose this game, just for the consciousness of the city, I think it would be devastating.
Duck and cover if the Saints lose this
one.
one.
I mean, I think it's kind of one of those games they have, and I think they are going to play well. I mean, there's been a good vibe in the locker room all week. I think there's a confidence level, and I think they think they're going to kind of unveil this offense, and it's going to catch some people off guard a little bit. You get that feel, right? So I'm eager to see it. I think everybody's eager to see what this team's about.
Okay, quick key to the game before we go to predictions, Luke.
Get after Bryce Young. I mean, we've seen this pass rush look really, really good in the preseason against backups, against the Saints offensive line that we all assume to be shaky. Can they do it against a Panthers offensive line that I would put it average, below average in the NFL? They need to get after him. They need to make life tough on him. They need to stop the run. And if they can do that, I think they have it's like a lock for them to win the game.
Matt?
I would agree with Luke, but just for the sake of variety, I think this offensive line, it's actually going to face a good test out of the gates, just with 3 new starters up front. See how Trevor Penning does, see how Talise Fuaga does, and Jadeveon Clowney is a respected pass rusher, albeit maybe a little inconsistent, but it'll be a good test, and if they can hold up the offense, that this team can't do what they want to do on offense unless this offensive line holds up.
I'm surprised it took us this long to mention Trevor Penning's name, honestly, but it's kind of final exam one time for him, do or die. So, Saints Fans Associated Grocers is hiring. If you're looking to join a team dedicated to supporting independent grocers, apply today. Your future starts here. Okay, prediction time. We're going to start with Rod Walker, who's not here. He has Saints 20, Panthers 13. So low scoring game. I think that's kind of what that's like the chalk expectation is the Saints kind of grind one out like they did when these two teams met in the Dome last year. So he's got 20-13. Matt Paras, how about you?
I had 24-7, and that's
I think you're the high man on the margin of victory.
I am, yeah. I almost texted the group saying, can I change that to 14? But you know what? I'm going to stick with my guns, and I just think this defensive line is really going to punish Bryce Young in this first game, and I don't expect too much of a high scoring output from the Saints because I just think they're going to have to work through some things, but I still think this defense is good enough, and I don't really believe in the Panthers offense, at least in week 1 when everything's new.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is if it's the type of game that you're expecting, you could see a takeaway or two from the Saints and lead to a short field, and that could help. Remember last year the Titans fumbled the opening kickoff?
No, Saints fumbled
the opening kickoff against the Titans, gave them a short field, and that was what a hell of a way to start the season that was.
Yeah.
Saints still won the game, of course. I'm going higher scoring. I'm also going closer. I think this thing comes down to the wire. I know I said last week that I thought the Saints could lose this game.
Coward.
I know.
Yeah,
I went
picked
coward.
the Panthers.
I really would not be surprised if Carolina won this game. I think they're going to be a lot better than people think, but
no reason.
I guess I'm also no. Dave Canales is my reason, man. Bryce Young was the #1 pick for a reason.
Okay.
Yeah,
I saw him last year.
Yeah. Well, it was a bad year, but this is a new one. I've been kind of imbued with that last-minute optimism of preseason and think, okay, the Saints are going to come out and at least be competitive the first half of the season and keep us all interested and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go with a Blake Grupe game-winning field goal from 47 yards to win 23-21.
Coward.
I like it. At least
Coward.
specific.
All right, Luke. What's your non-cowardly prediction?
I'm a coward too, actually. I never said the Panthers are going to win this one. So I do think the Saints are going to win. I had them 20-16, which is exactly a push, I think. The reason for that is just because while I think this offense is going to be good and fun over the course of the season, I can see it getting off to like a little bit of a slow start first week of the season. I think the same thing for Carolina. I just think at the end of the day, the Saints team is more talented across the board than Carolina is. I would be really surprised if the Saints drop this game, and I would be really reticent to open Twitter for like 2 months. All that being said, though, I think it's going to be like kind of a grinded out, rough start, maybe a smattering of booze in the dome, but they're going to end up pulling it out and getting it done.
All right, it's 20-16. Jeff, how about you?
I was close to Rod. I think it was 23-13, but I think the Saints could steamroll these guys if they get it going offensively.
They absolutely could.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if they can get it going week one. That's,
right. I mean,
You
I
were
think
actually 26-13. Jeff.
okay. Sorry, but I think the baseline here, 120 rushing yards or more. They need to kind of get the running game going. If they get that thing going, then I think it really sets up some big play potential downfield with Olave and Rashid. In the secondary for Carolina, they can be exposed. Other than Horn, I think they're pretty, they're pretty weak there. So I could see this being a perfect opponent. Work out the kinks before you get into that gauntlet coming up. I compare this to like one of these FCS opponents who played.
Wow. But you're only a 4-point favorite over the FCS.
NFL version of like West Virginia Tech or something.
Look, that's a bulletin board for the Panthers there. Jeff Duncan calls them West Virginia Tech. No, look, that's the first week, first kiss of death. All 5 of us picked the Saints.
And all 5 of us went, what, under?
No, I'd over. 23-21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
going over. I actually do think it'll be higher scoring. I think Carolina's offense will look better. I think the Saints' offense will look better. Anyway, it's interesting because the NFL is all about schedule spots. I always talk about this. The Saints have got to emphasize it's a division game, it's a home game, and with the schedule coming up, like if they lose this, all of a sudden 0-5 is a distinct possibility.
And their division record is why they've lost the NFC South the last couple of years.
So they swept Carolina last year. We all have them getting off to a good start this year. That is our show for today. Our producer's Norman Bell. He's Matthew Paras. I'm Zach Ewing, Luke Johnson, and Jeff Duncan. We'll see you Sunday after the game on the Saints Insider postgame show on these same channels. And until then, have a good weekend.